Now, our emotional habits and patterns came to us from primarily our parents, or at least the environments that we were in as we grew up. And those patterns began to be how we responded to the external stimulation in our environment. And it's why two children growing up in the same household can have very different emotional conditionings, because they have very, very different sensitivities in terms of who they are. And we don't often begin to look at, within the context of emotions, how that really impacts our relationships with each other. Now, one of the things that we have to do first in order to understand this is understand a little bit about emotions. And they're actually really pretty simple in terms of emotions themselves and what they do and how emotions work. They're basically just they're just balancing mechanisms. They balance us physiologically and psychologically. And so what happens is an emotion arises, all right? It does its job, we feel it, all right? And then it gets us balanced, all right? And then it goes away. And then another emotion will arise, and it balances us, and it goes away. And it arises, balance, go away. Now, the problem comes when we use that, again, that thinking mind, that one that comes with that internal dialogue, okay, and we begin to start to monkey with emotions. First of all, we don't have a very good vocabulary for emotions, and so what happens is that we have very, very few words to cover a lot of emotional feelings. And so in those few words, what happens is that we begin to kind of take a very large frequency of emotions, but put a single word on it. So sadness, and every time you felt sad, it never felt the same as any other sadness at the feeling level. But the minute that you put sadness as a label on it in your head, you begin to feel like what you think sadness feels like, and it takes you away from what you're feeling. And we take that emotion that is a heart emotion, and we move it up and make it a head emotion. Look, let me give you an example of this. You wake up in the morning and you're depressed, okay? Now, again, that's a word. There's no times that you felt low and bad that were the same as you did the time before or whenever you've done that. And that is something that, again, is a balancing mechanism. All of us have to go through the lows in order to do that psychological balance. But we decide in our head, oh my God, I'm depressed. Oh, I shouldn't feel depressed. Now, what we've done at this point is we've not only kind of made them head emotions, but we've also decided that some emotions are good, okay, and some emotions are bad, okay? They're all balancing mechanisms, okay? They're neither good nor bad. They just are. But we've decided, oh, I shouldn't be depressed. And so then we say, okay, well, I've got a good job, and I'm married, and I have a happy family, and all of this, and so I'm not depressed. And pretty soon we and we get ourselves, and we do this, by the way, by okay, I'm going to contract, okay, to be something that I'm not. And so I pretend. It's pretentious. I pretend not to be depressed, which of course means that the balancing mechanism can't happen. Okay, and so I am pretending. And I've now lost connection to be able to feel anything in relation to my environment and the people around me, because I'm too busy being something that I'm not, pretending that I'm not depressed. And so we begin to then start to create emotions in our head. Now, why would we do this? And it's mostly because the emotions that we have in our head, we have some control over. Whereas the emotions that are arising in our heart, those we don't have control over. And sometimes we get scared. Remember back when we talked about personality. One of the reasons that we build a personality is to be consistent from one day to the next, so that I'm the same today as I was tomorrow, and I will be, the day after, all right? And so that consistency, all right, which is we become the same. That's one of the reasons that we build a personality. And that means that the personality is made to resist change. So understand that every time we try to change something in our lives, we're automatically going to have resistance by our personality. But the other reason that we actually begin to create a personality and become so strongly attached to that personality is because we want somebody to be in control. We want to be in control of our emotions. We want to be in control of our environment. We want to be able to have this impact. So we create this illusion that there's somebody there, okay? And we create this personality. And the personality then creates its own feelings that are feelings that justify what the personality wants. If I get angry, if I get defensive, what I'm defending is my personality, okay? And so what happens is that we get caught in this syndrome, all right, of defining even what we feel with personality, with emotions that have been programmed and that are habitual and that we're basically came from our childhood and decided that we should look at the world as being, a terrible thing or a hostile environment or a wonderful environment. But it's again creating this process to where we get caught in all of these head emotions. And look, we're programmed very young in terms of emotions. If you're a little boy on the football field and you fall and skin your knee and the coach comes to you, and says, don't cry, because you're like, oh man, my knee hurts, and and you say, don't cry. And the coach essentially says, hey, boys don't cry, buck up here, be strong. You shouldn't be a crybaby, and all of a sudden what we've done is we have programmed that child to not be able to deal with pain. Anytime pain comes up, so I can't feel that pain, I've got to be a man, I've got to be tough, and all of that is constricted, all right? And so what happens is I've got to be something that I'm not. I have to be a feeling that I'm not there. Even when we talk about things like that whole process of getting, caught in those things of the emotional connections when we wake up in the morning and we're depressed. You can also get depressed about being depressed. And what you do is instead of feeling the depression, you move it into your head and you go, oh, I'm so depressed. And then you don't have to feel the depression, you just have to feel the pretense of the depression. And that actually is safer for us.